But welcome everybody. So I take it most of y'all are trying to become instructional designers this year or in the near future. I think we put together a poll for you here, so I'm gonna share this poll with you. If you're not trying to become an ID, that's okay. We welcome all perspectives here. So if you're already in the field and you wanna, share your experience or help answer some of the questions we'll get, that is more than appreciated. Okay, cool. So around 85% of us are trying to become an ID. That's good. You're in the right place. um, and I want to know, have you already watched my latest video? I think it went live a little under, like a week and a half ago or so about how to become an instructional designer. I've had videos like that go live every year. So maybe you've seen one of the older ones, but yeah, have you already watched that? That will be helpful to know. Okay. Looks like 40% of us or so have watched it. So I want to have a good balance, right? I don't want this session to just be me regurgitating everything that's in that guide because that's already in YouTube. And I want to take advantage of us being here live together. So I want the session to be kind of interactive, if that's okay with y'all. Um, right? The people who have watched the guide, maybe you can help answer some of these questions. Maybe we can get, do some personal feedback for people. Like we can dive into some of y'all's actual situations if you have more specific questions. We could even take a look at some portfolios together, right? I know portfolio feedback can really help. We do have a session next week. Scott and Sabrina are going live, and the whole session is about portfolio feedback. So you can like submit your portfolio in advance. Well, yeah, let me know what y'all want to do here. Again, I don't want to just go into presentation mode. I want to take advantage of being here together live. So I want to make sure we can answer some more unique questions. I'm sure we will get questions about creating a portfolio, right? Most important skills to learn. That's all fair game, but I want to make sure that we got something good, that y'all who have already watched the guide get something good out of this session as well. So yeah, the guide, I can share a link to the guide. Oh, Nathan is sharing it. We can even add it as like a call to action, Nathan, if we want to make it easier for people to like bookmark if they want. But yeah, can y'all let me know if you'd like in the chat kind of where you're coming into this field from? So if you can give me a little summary of your journey so far, like are you, I've been teaching for 10 years and I'm trying to land a remote corporate role in the States, something along those lines. Like let me know where you're coming from and what your goal is. I could tailor the session a little bit more, seeing where most people are at with that. Sorry if you're having tech issues. Hopefully that's not happening for many people. All right, Kristen, you're training coordinator. Nice. That's a good background to have. Rachel coming from ID higher ed. Oh, you're a tech teacher. You want to be, or are you already at ID and higher ed, or that's what your goal is? Teachers looking for remote ID roles. Yeah, I think that's a big draw of the field, right? The remote side of things. All right, Maru, nice coming from the HR field. Your experiences outside of the USA. I know we'll talk more about that. All right, retired from teaching in 2023, re-entering the job market. Nice. Yeah, I'd say transitioning teachers are the most common group that get into the instructional design field. It makes a lot of sense. I think ID is one of the most popular fields teachers are going into after they leave teaching. Um, cool. Okay. Social worker, nice. Yeah, social workers. A lot of social workers transition into ID as well. Some people who are already working in the field and got laid off. We have a really good mix, it looks like. All right. Let's dive into some questions. How does that sound with y'all? If you want to share your portfolio links, I could take a look at those at some point, but maybe there's some more, fundamental questions before we dive into that. Is anyone wondering just like what IDs do, or how hard is it to really get a job? Or let me know where you're at. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. I wish we could kind of vote on the questions like we could with one of our older platforms to see which questions are the most popular, but let's see. All right, Arwa, you want to see some portfolios? I think we can make that happen. I'm down to stay here for like up to 90 minutes total, so we have more than enough time to get into some stuff. Multiple questions. How hard is it to get a job? Let's start there. Anyone have any perspectives on this in the chat too that you want to share? Maybe some people have been applying, have some feelings about how hard it is to land a job. So let's talk about that. Yeah, because that's, Carmelo just shared a common perception, right? The ID market is being flooded. I've been hearing this since 2017, and people have been getting jobs, but yeah, it's becoming more and more popular. It's not a household term yet, right? Most people you talk to on the street, they're not going to have any idea what an instructional designer does. I can't even say that it's increased a ton since I got into the field in 2017. Um, it's not as easy to get a job as just like updating your resume, applying to jobs, and hoping you get lucky, right? Like very few people are successful with that approach. Maybe if you're like an incredible networker, or yeah, you get really, really lucky. You probably all know by now you're going to need a decent portfolio if you want to have an actual shot at getting hired. Now, in 2021, if you had a decent portfolio, you were going to get hired within a couple of months, right? Like you were getting 1 or 2 interviews for every 10 job applications that you do. It is a little bit harder nowadays, right? You can have a great portfolio and it can still take months of applying, right? 3+ months sometimes. Sometimes if you know you want a remote role, a high paying remote role, it can take several months on the job market. It's not as easy as, you get 3 offers within your first couple of months of applying. So it's not as easy as it used to be. Even if you do have a solid portfolio, it's definitely still possible though. The people that we're working with directly, every one of them, once they have the portfolio, are still landing roles, but they have been saying that it's hard. Some people are saying, yeah, it's very discouraging, right? They're still landing interviews. I think, one person I talked to recently, I'm going to do an interview with them. They really held out. They got a really solid learning consultant role at an insurance company. I think their rough number estimates where they applied to like 300 roles and landed like between 15 and 20 interviews before finally accepting this offer. So they landed an ID role pretty early in that process. It wasn't their like dream ID role, so they kept applying. They were in like final interviews with KFC, I believe it was, and then they just stopped hiring for the role, so that fell through, and that was really disappointing. And then finally, they landed this remote role, and they're a couple weeks in, but they said it seems like a dream role so far. So we're gonna interview this person. That video is gonna go live at the end of the month. But yeah, so that kind of gives an idea that I wouldn't say that's the norm. It doesn't usually take 300 applications, but again, if you're being picky with the role and you have the time and the luxury to take it a little slower, you can land a really, really solid role. Sometimes I see people take the first job offer they get after a couple of months, and maybe it doesn't check all the boxes they wanted it to. So yeah, I'd say it's getting a little harder. It's definitely not impossible though, and there's most of the roles people are landing are still remote, I would say, at least the people I'm working directly with. So let me know if y'all have any follow-up questions on that. That's just one anecdote that's on the top of my mind because I was talking to this person yesterday. But yeah, if you do the steps, you're still going to get hired. It's just the job search can be kind of demoralizing with roles popping up and then getting taken away and stuff like that. Okay, I see a lot of questions came in while I was talking about all of that. So I'm gonna look at the questions tab. Thank you, Nathan, for I'm guessing you're the one sorting these. Okay, so Libby is asking, every job posting wants experience. Would you consider teaching as ID experience if you have a portfolio? So I think whether you're coming from teaching or any other background, you can position the experience you do have as instructional design experience. Like instructional design is so interdisciplinary. If you were training any other people, if you were teaching people how to do something new at any point on your job, you can position that as instructional design experience. If you're learning new technology or creating software or um, we were kind of diving into this at a workshop yesterday with people coming from like the mental health professionals and like their treatment plans and stuff that they were creating. You can kind of position that as like customized, tailored learning pathways that you're designing for people. So there are it's really about how you position your past experience. So you don't need to have that formal instructional designer job title to be able to talk about your past experience in instructional design terms. And that's hard, right? Like if you don't already know how to talk the talk of instructional design, it's hard to see how that translates. But that's the biggest aha moment I would say people have when they're transitioning into this field, right? That imposter syndrome and like, oh, I have to do a whole new thing. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. going from that to like, oh, I see how, leading these workshops was like designing these learning experiences, and like it clicking where you see all of your past, what you've been doing in the past as stuff that you will be doing in the future, just in a different context and calling it by a different name. That's when it really clicks for people and they start doing way better with their resume and their interviews. So yeah, you don't want to go into those interviews like, well, I have no experience, I just want someone to like take a chance on me and all of that. It's like, really take the time to see how your past experience is supporting you in your instructional design role. And we could talk more about that if that's helpful. But yeah, so I would consider that experience. And if you've put in the work to create a portfolio that shows off those storyline skills, shows off how you can solve a real world problem with instructional design, you're going to be in good shape. You're going to be in better shape than people with 5, 8 years of experience who don't have a portfolio. So don't be intimidated. I've been seeing that come up a lot too in the past couple of weeks. People saying they're not applying to these mid-level roles. They're only applying to entry level, but they have these beautiful portfolio sites that they put in like hundreds of hours into. Or at least 100 hours, I'd say. You can apply to those roles with more experience. Those are the roles that people are applying to when they transition into the field. You definitely don't need to settle for like an internship or an entry level role. Those are going to be much far and fewer between anyway. So good question, Libby. Katrina, what are key skills that an instructional designer would need with artificial intelligence? So this is interesting too, because this has been coming up more. I'd say you don't need artificial intelligence skills right now to break into the field. Possibly, right? Maybe that could change within a few months from now. But right now, I don't think it's a necessity. I think it's a very nice to have, and it will open doors for you that aren't open for instructional designers who don't have AI skills. So for reference, we do these AI workshops every week, and I've been really encouraging people to create AI projects for their portfolio because I see that the tides are shifting a little bit. We get more outreach about AI projects. We see more job listings where AI is included as a key competency. And this person I was just talking about who landed that role, his name is Daniel Guimont. We're going to do an interview with him. You might have seen me feature him in some YouTube videos because he has done a really cool AI project. It's the what is it? Like the de-escalation one. So you're like de-escalating a tense situation with someone who like broke a window at a grocery store, I think it was. And that character is like fully AI powered and it's inside of a storyline course. So this company that hired him went really deep into his portfolio. They were super impressed by that AI project. They were asking really in-depth questions and it played a really big role in him landing that role, from my understanding. We're going to dive more into his story later this month, like I said. And then also, I just got the news yesterday that someone who created one of these custom GPTs, you might have seen this YouTube video, like the best AI portfolio project for instructional designers. I was really advocating, like, start here. It's the easiest AI project to start with. This person just landed a part-time ID role where their whole job is like an AI-powered instructional designer. So their specialty will be working with these AI tools, and it was all because she included some of this AI skill set in her portfolio site. So yeah, you don't need those skills, but if you are comfortable working with ChatGPT and you can prompt well and you know how to design these like AI powered learning experiences, it sounds really intimidating. You can literally do it with a custom GPT. If you don't know what that is, watch that video I mentioned. You can make one of these in an afternoon and it can go a very long way on your portfolio site just to show that you have some AI competency. And then I'd say like the AI media generation skills are going to be a nice to have for the foreseeable future, right? It makes an ID so much more capable. You can do so much more as a one person instructional design team with these AI tools than you could a few years ago. So yeah, learn how to generate the AI images, learn how to use ChatGPT to help you throughout your design process, generate AI voiceover. That's the best one by far, like time saving and quality wise. So yeah, and I do have a YouTube video about that too, Katrina, like the top AI skills for IDs if you want to check that out. But good question. I'm gonna take a look at the chat. I know y'all might have like follow-ups and stuff. Libby, nice, used AI to generate backgrounds for your flagship project. Yeah, that's a good way to use it. Yeah, articulates adding more AI to their toolkit. For now, free pick. I think I'm gonna record a YouTube video tomorrow, like the top 3 like e-learning tools for instructional designers or something like that. And I think it's gonna be like Storyline, ChatGPT, and free pick Picasso. And free pick, just because it's such a comprehensive suite, it has a bunch of human created assets that used to be like the gold standard for people developing e-learning since I got into the field. But now they've really been investing in their AI suite. So they make it so you can generate images, video, voiceover, sound effects. More than that too. I'm sure I'm missing something. I don't know if you can do music in that one yet, but yeah, that's a really good AI suite, and I think it's pretty affordable too. Free Pick, Freepik. So yeah, that's a good AI generation site. Natalie asked, what is the best way to move past imposter syndrome? Anyone in the chat want to weigh in on this one? I know there's different perspectives on this. I know for some of us, it never really goes away, right? I don't know, Natalie, do you have any ideas on what you think would help? I have some ideas of what would help. I don't know, like, if you could see all of the e-learning and stuff that's out there, I actually don't know how to say this. Like, the bar in this field is not extremely high, I would say. If you were to look at all of the work that all instructional designers are doing, it can get kind of skewed by the stuff you see on LinkedIn, the stuff you see on YouTube, the stuff you see online. But if you could see like the stuff that companies are creating, I think that you might be reassured that you could do something just as well, if not better. So people have gotten really comfortable in their ID roles, and again, not a ton of innovation in this field. It isn't as fast moving as like software engineering or something. So that's why if you do have, yeah, if you have some ambition, if you have some drive, if you do have real passion for this field, you can excel pretty well and rise through the ranks pretty quickly if you're pretty competent. So yeah, I'm not saying, there are a ton of bad IDs out there, right? People are doing a good job. It's just there have been IDs out there who've been doing this for a while and maybe not keeping up to date with the tech skills and the visual design skills and user experience design. So yeah, when hiring managers and stuff are looking at your portfolio and they see that you have this more modern skill set, it can be very alluring for people who need this kind of e-learning for their employees. So that's like an external piece. Like, the job seems intimidating and overwhelming at first, but yeah, it's all something that you can learn. I'm sure I imagine you might have been using skills already to help people learn. I'm going to take a look at the chat now and see what other people are saying. But that helped me when I was getting started, looking at some of the portfolios back then. I'm like, I can do this. I was like, I don't have these skills yet, but I think I can learn these. Clark, yeah, stop endlessly comparing yourself to others. I think that's probably a good idea too. If you see someone doing great work too, it doesn't mean, oh, my work is sucks or not good or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that could cut both ways, comparing yourself to other people's work. Let's see. Anyone else share any helpful perspectives on how they're dealing with imposter syndrome? I like that, Jamie. If you're feeling like you don't know what you have to offer, think about the last onboarding module or onboarding training you did. You do have contributions to make. I mean, that's the thing. Our field has kind of a bad reputation because of, when people think of corporate e-learning, it's like, oh, that boring stuff I have to do every year. So that's why if you're coming into this field with some creativity, with some passion, like, you can really stand out quite easily, and you can really be appreciated by people if you're creating some good stuff. All right. Okay, good. I'll let y'all keep sharing those perspectives. I'm gonna dive into the next question. Sorry, Natalie. I'm sure if I had longer to think about that, I could, and if I knew more about your situation, I can give some more personalized guidance there, or suggestions. But you've got this. All right. I've never seen someone give it their all, getting into this field, learn all of these skills, persist applying for several months, and just not land any offers or any roles. So it's doable, but yeah, I don't want to understate, it does take a lot of work. Obviously, that is a new skill set you're going to have to learn. But if you've been helping people learn in your past career, you're not starting at square zero. All right, so let's see. I see some specific portfolio questions. I'm going to save that. Okay, these are moving fast now. Okay, let's see. Maisha asked, I found out there are AI tools to help create a portfolio. What would you recommend? I'm not sure I would recommend any of these like AI website tools. I think ChatGPT goes a long way, the image generating ones. Yeah, I'm not thinking, I know there are these like AI website generators, but I haven't found any of them to be consistent or good enough to actually recommend them yet. So if anyone else has any perspective on that, feel free to share it in the chat. Archie says, I have a specific niche and am self-taught. How do I find jobs in my niche? So if you have a specific niche and it's like an unfair advantage and you know you want to land an instructional design role in that niche, first, yeah, I guess make sure that there are instructional design roles in that niche, right? If it's too niche, it might be hard to find the kind of roles you're looking for. But once you validate that and you see, okay, yeah, there definitely are ID roles in this sector, I would make your whole portfolio focus 100% on that niche. So, right, I design e-learning solutions for builders or for contract, or for, I design healthcare learning solutions to, empower or whatever. And then have, 1 to 3 portfolio projects that are all in that niche. That portfolio, that application is gonna, how are people going to compare to that if they're just applying with a more general portfolio, especially if you have that subject matter expertise, the background knowledge. Some companies really like that, people coming in who are already familiar with the industry. So yeah, I think you would be in a really comfortable spot to land a role in your niche if there are jobs, if your portfolio is very tailored to that niche. And yeah, feel free to ask follow-up questions. I might see them. All right. Question from Juan. Sometimes I get job requests, but my skill set is not quite there. Should I still apply? People have different perspectives on this. I think that if you want to build one skill, the safest skill to build is articulate storyline 360, just because it's the number one like hard technical skill that hiring managers and corporate teams are looking for. I would suggest being familiar with all the tools listed in the job listing. After you apply, maybe you do a screening, right? If you're getting further along, because I have been hearing some stories recently where people are like, oh yeah, I checked all these boxes. I learned all of these tools, but I didn't have experience with this specific learning management system that they use, and they passed me up. Someone left a LinkedIn comment saying that, and I was like, that is bizarre, because generally, the responsibilities of an instructional designer in an LMS, a learning management system, are going to be very limited. So you don't need a super deep or comprehensive skill set there unless you are doing LMS and admin work, which typically is a role in and of itself. So, I would hate for anyone to lose a role because they say, oh yeah, I have no experience with that tool, when you could have started a trial for that tool and learned how to upload a course to it within 30 minutes, right? So yeah, I would probably try to do something in these tools or look them up, know what they're capable of, and yeah, be able to mention that, right? Oh, have you ever used this LMS? Oh yeah, I have experience uploading courses to that LMS and enrolling learners, even if it's something you did for 30 minutes to get the hang of. Because again, sometimes the hiring manager doesn't know the level of depth or of the skill set you'll need with a specific tool. They just know it's a box they need to check. So yeah, for deep knowledge, Storyline 360 is a good one to go deep with. But if you're really passionate about a role and you think you're going to make it deeper into the interview process, I would say try to get some really rudimentary experience with these tools. I know it's a lot if you're applying to, a dozen jobs a week, but hopefully that's a little helpful. So I'd say yes, apply. If it's a job you're really excited about, try to get somewhat familiar with those tools. You don't have to master every single tool on a job listing by any means, right? There are a lot of IDs who, some of y'all in this audience who have been learning Storyline for the past month or two, probably know Storyline better than half of the working IDs out there. So again, I don't, not to crap on working IDs, right? There's a lot more that goes into this field than Storyline, but I just want to show sometimes when you build some of these skills that are in demand and that not everyone is keeping up with, you do have quite a good, you can use that as a good advantage in the field. And for people who are new here, yeah, that is the great combo, right? Have the solid instructional design skill set. You know how to apply the theory. You really know how to solve learning problems, and you have that e-learning development skill set where you can bring it to life in a tool like Articulate Storyline. You have visual design skills, so you can make it look nice. That's what helped me really blow up my freelance business. That's what's helped me help people get jobs for the past 5 years. It's still working really well, that combo of skill sets. And just to give you all the history, that was a shift in the field. So if I were to get into the field 10 years earlier, there was no, I don't think there was a Storyline 10 years before I got into the field. 2007, probably not. Maybe someone who's been in the field longer than me can fact check me on that. But earlier in the field's history, we didn't have this dual role of instructional designer also doing the e-learning development. The e-learning developers were working in more complex tools. They were using custom code. So yeah, it was more clearly defined. So that's why, some instructional designers who've been in the field since the 90s, they're great at writing storyboards, planning learning activities, role play scenarios. But if you look at the activities they suggest in a tool like Articulate Storyline, they suggest stuff that's either super not possible or that would take a ton of custom coding. So yeah, that just want to show you not every ID has that really solid skill set in both, but if you're trying to become an ID, it's one of the easiest ways to get hired. John, I just saw this. What is your take on Camtasia? I'm guessing Audition by Audiate and Storyline 360. I think those supporting tools you don't need to go super deep in. I did that getting into the field. I spent a year, going super deep into these different tools like Camtasia, or Adobe, or Premiere Pro, Illustrator. I spent like 3 months going through like advanced tutorials from LinkedIn Learning, doing stuff like professional artists do, and I've never used anything close to that in my e-learning courses. So yeah, I'd say for, if you want to transition into the field as quickly as possible and want the best return on investment on your time, you don't need to do 3-month certifications on Camtasia, for example. All right, you don't need to know every tool in the Adobe suite. So I think my latest recommendation is learn Articulate Storyline 360, right? Find a project to build that you're passionate about. And as you're building that project, if you find that you need something that you can't do in Storyline, then dig into whatever tool is necessary to do it, right? So if you need a really snazzy explainer video and you want to use some of like the templates and stuff in Camtasia, then feel free to jump into Camtasia and export a video and bring it back into Storyline. If you need to edit these graphics in a specific way and Storyline can't do it, then dive into Illustrator and figure out, learn as you go as you're building a real project. That's my suggestion. Don't learn these tools just for the sake of learning them when, depending on the role and depending on what you're building, you might not need to get super in depth with them. And maybe you love it, you pick it up and like it, and you want to go deep. That's fine too. You can definitely leverage that skill as an asset. But yeah, video editing, you can do some level of video editing in Storyline T. Like, a common form of these learning experiences in this field is like narration and then some visuals to support the narration, right? So have some kind of voiceover file and then some kind of shifting backgrounds, shifting characters, shifting objects, right? You want to use visuals to reinforce whatever the narration is. And while you can do that in a video editing tool, you can also use Storyline's timeline to do that. And I've worked on projects where that's what's expected. So you'll bring in a bunch of objects onto the Storyline timeline, sync it up with the narration right in Storyline, and you don't need to touch a video editing tool. Obviously, dedicated tools are going to be more powerful for video editing. I use Premiere Pro. I actually just started using Final Cut instead for, I'm experimenting with like recording some shorts and like iPhone footage. Looks better and works better in Final Cut Pro if you're using like HDR. So it's like little things like that. But I just say if you've worked with one video editing tool, you can work with any video editing tool, right? You need to know like cut the clips, rearrange the clips, how to export with the right settings. And obviously, Camtasia has some, they have like different templates and different cool things you can do. But yeah, that's my take on that. Vyond is really good, especially for portfolio building, just because they have such a big library of consistent assets. So it's a pricey tool as well, but you can see some really cool flagship projects built with Vyond just because all of the artwork is so cohesive, right? It's animated, and you can build it super easily. So I think, yeah, IDs like tools like that because you can get more done faster and it still looks professional and all of that. Norbert, I see you have a question. Is it okay to create a project in Rise instead of Storyline? It's okay to create a project in Rise instead of Storyline. I think it's nice to, it can help you to show off, an e-learning asset, but it's gonna be you're not gonna be able to land a job as effectively as if you were to show off Storyline skills. So that piece specifically, I'd say like if you're showing off Storyline skills in your portfolio, you're gonna be like 75% more likely to be able to get your foot in the door than if you weren't, from my experience. I've seen people apply for a year, say they're not landing interviews. With Rise projects in their portfolio PowerPoint. So I'd say you definitely want to show off some kind of storyline skills and be able to say you have that experience, even if you use Parallels. So you can run storyline on a Mac with the program called Parallels. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna look back at the questions tab. Norbert, okay, I see you also have a question in the questions tab over here. In 2025, has the format/design/expectations of portfolios changed? Not in my experience. I'd say AI on your portfolio is definitely standing out to people, helping people get hired more easily. So it's changed in that way. We are definitely seeing people get hired without it. I'd say our approach and recommendations around portfolios have become more refined, right? Like keep it simple, keep it minimal, keep it easy to navigate. Don't include extra sections for the sake of including extra sections. Hero section followed immediately by your featured project or projects, because that's what hiring managers are looking for. They want to see your work. So it's really just been our approach has just been a matter of getting more and more simple over the years, like simplifying it, getting it down to the essentials so people can get those sites live faster and get hired faster. And then, yeah, my big push for people like in our programs and on YouTube, which I'm sharing with everyone, is like show off those AI skills. I wouldn't learn AI skills instead of learning any of the other skills. So it's kind of like the final step if you want to give your portfolio that extra, make it a little bit more effective. But yeah, you still need the storyline skills, right? You still need the instructional design skills. Show that you're solving a real world problem with your process right up. I just had a video go live on Tuesday where I share these updated take. But yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of people in roles in the past like 2 months, all with a very similar portfolio approach. So yeah, I shared that all in my video that went live Tuesday. So, and I wish I could say I'm like, oh yeah, it's constantly changing. Yeah, I'm like really trying to keep up with everything, but it's not. It's not changing that much. We're just doing more of what works, and I'm trying to share it all for free. And yeah, we're gonna dive even deeper into it at next week's portfolio live event. So yeah. Portfolio isn't rocket science. Just do what works, and it's going to help you get there. All right, Karen, is there a source to learn about the best practices in instructional design? How to make decisions regarding the best color palette choices, font, etc., for developing portfolio assets, especially when you don't have a client or QA team to give you feedback? Okay, that's a good question. So as far as sources, maybe y'all in the chat can share what your favorite go-to sources are for learning about instructional design stuff. But yeah, a lot of good content on YouTube. There are a lot of beginner-friendly books like Design for How People Learn. I think that's like the first book I read. Um, there's the web accessibility guidelines, which it sounds like is part of what you're looking for, and that can be a really good thing to get familiar with, talk about in interviews, talk about in your process write-up, and it can give you very practical guidance on font sizing, color choices, things like that. There's also, what is it called? Visual Design for Non-Designers. That was like a life-changing book for me. The most intimidating part for me getting into the field was I was like, I'm terrible with like visual art. I can't draw to save my life. This visual design piece is so intimidating. But reading that book really, and then practicing what it says, like repetition, proximity, alignment, um, those principles really helped me like design like passing layouts that looks professional and clean and stuff like that. So yeah, you don't have to be an artist or something to make clean e-learning experiences. Then take a look at the chat and see if anyone's sharing suggestions here. Nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, ChatGPT too. Yeah, that's a good reference. Yeah, I made this like become an ID bot also to help people with the transition. So it's pretty. I mean, it's such a time to be alive and be working on a career transition, having ChatGPT to help out. Someone has a question about the roadmap. I have a roadmap our team just made where we like share a bunch of resources on there. But yeah, our idea is like phase one, build your foundational skills. So that's storyline, learn the ID theory, get an idea of how you're applying these theories. Like I'd say the top 3 or 4, Gagne's 9 events, look at how to apply that to an e-learning experience, for example. Mayer's multimedia principles, super important, very practical suggestions on how to combine different types of media. Kirkpatrick's level or 4 levels of evaluation can come up in interviews, can be really good to know, like, how do we actually evaluate a learning experience? What different levels do we need to think through the effectiveness of this learning experience? And is there another one that makes that cut? What do y'all think? I'd say those are probably the top 3, the big 3. I might be missing one that I usually recommend, but those are some very practical ones. Let's see. Yeah, and then like how to write a storyboard is good. Yeah, design doc, needs assessment. Those can be a bit more niche, maybe not as essential if you want to just get hired. But yeah, learn those foundational skills, then put it together in a portfolio project in a portfolio, and then apply to the job. So that's kind of the process we've been using in our programs and stuff. But all right, cool. That was a good question. Let's see what we have next here. All right, T has a question. What are the main differences and challenges of being a freelance instructional designer versus a full-time instructional designer, and how do you navigate them? So do we have anyone here who's working as a freelancer or wants to be a freelance ID? I see we have a similar question from Mario about how hard it is to become a freelance ID. So yeah, let me gauge the interest for this. We can definitely talk about it. All right, we have some people who are interested. We have some people who are currently doing it. Sounds like most of us here are looking for full-time though. Okay. Okay. We have some good interest in freelancing. So you're in the right spot. So this was my career before doing like my like academy program was freelancing. So I did it for a few years. It went pretty well. The first year was terrible. I was I was like 22. I was like still finishing up my master's program. Oh, maybe I was 23 when I got that contract. And I was just happy to be getting work, right? I got a big like 60K project. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. They're like, yeah, it's part-time, right? It should take like 9 months. And then I get there and meet the end client, and they basically want to treat me like a full-time employee on like a 12-month contract. And what they were saying, they were like, oh, it's 9, 15 to 20-minute modules. And then the end client is like, oh yeah, this is going to be each module is going to have like 5 15 to 20-minute lessons in it. So they're trying to take advantage of me so bad, like the scope like 5x. And I had to spend that year learning how to like set boundaries, like have tough conversations with clients while still being professional, charge enough, to make sure that if things do go south, it was just a nightmare. I learned it was like a crash course in like learning how to freelance, and it was like miserable. But after that, things were going really well, where you're making like multiple 6 figures per year. My wife was helping out. So it was good. The biggest benefit is the flexibility of it, right? You decide which hours you work. You decide which projects you get to take. You get to say no. And that's a skill you have to learn if you're not already practiced with that. The earning potential is a lot higher. Project-based pricing was something I really dove into after that first year or so. And you can definitely charge a premium for specialized skills that you have. So for example, some of y'all might know I dive deep into like the JavaScript side of things. I really like the like more advanced e-learning development. I'd say that's what comes most naturally to me. So yeah, I would work on projects. I would charge 15K, and sometimes they would take me like 10 hours or so. Now those projects would come far and few between because not everyone needs such a specialized skill set. But yeah, very good earning potential. And then, when you price like that, it's like it could take 10 hours, it could take 50 hours. Like I would quote projects where I'm like, I know I can make that, I just don't know everything that can go wrong yet. So pricing is like an art as well that you have to learn. Something else I really liked about it is, yeah, being able to work on the types of projects I like to work on, like these traditional info dump e-learning experiences. I really learned I didn't like doing the instructional design for. I didn't like writing storyboards for these, yeah, just info heavy, dry experiences. It was really draining for me. I wanted to be a bit more creative. So I started, showing off some more. Well, my portfolio was already pretty gamified, game heavy, or like, yeah, not traditional. But I just started being more picky with the clients I was taking on, and I started developing a more refined approach, which is this flagship project approach. So I was like, I want to do story-driven, scenario-based experiences. So I would kind of vet my clients and be like, does this project make sense for what you need? and I got to work on all the instructional design projects I was taking were using that approach where it was more story-driven, scenario-based. Again, I was able to charge a premium because not everyone was able to do projects like that. So after my portfolio featured enough of them, the people that were coming to me wanted those types of projects. So it's really cool. The freedom that comes with it. And it's also really challenging, not just setting boundaries with clients, but also setting boundaries with yourself. So, right, I was pretty obsessed my first several years in this field. I was thinking about clients and how I'm going to grow the business and stuff like that, like at 11:45 p.m. when I'm supposed to be going to sleep. I think it doesn't help that I have like anxiety, and I didn't even realize it was anxiety back then. But yeah, I would obsess pretty heavily. I was like eating, living, breathing instructional design. And, you might have heard it talked about too. It's like the feast and famine side of things when it comes to freelancing. So I was just talking about this yesterday too. Like, sometimes you go 2 months and you're like, oh no, my projects are about to finish up. Like, when am I going to get my next client? I need to be doing more work on my portfolio. I need to be networking more. I need to get out there. And then in the next week, you might have 3 new clients reach out with big budgets with the exact projects that you want to work on. So it can be a little nerve wracking there too, where it's like, you question if you're doing enough, right? The clients can come at weird times. You can get a handful at once, then none for a few months. So yeah, it takes a lot of trust and confidence in yourself. I had the luxury of like being on my parents' health insurance and literally, yeah, being 22 with like not a ton to lose. If it didn't work out, I could just get a full-time job. So I could see why, if you don't have a big safety net or, a spouse who has a stable job and health insurance and all of that, especially in the US, it can be a lot more scary trying to make that jump. But definitely possible. A lot of people work full-time and start freelancing on the side and then do the transition. So I'm always happy to talk more about the freelancing stuff. If y'all have more questions about that, feel free to send them my way. But yeah, freelancing definitely possible, definitely rewarding, has its own unique challenges, but I couldn't have had it any other way. I thought I was going to be working at Amazon. I was networking quite heavily there. I was really excited. Like, I was thinking I was going to work a full-time job my first couple of years in the field. But then my contact at Amazon told me that I can expect to start at around $60,000 per year. And I was like, I'm putting in like 60 plus hours per week, learning all these like advanced development skills and like making all these portfolio projects. And I was like, I just wanted to trust myself. I was making more than that already freelancing, like 50, 60 bucks an hour freelancing at the time. So I was like, I don't want to settle for a corporate job if I can have the flexibility and earn more as a freelancer. And I managed to land that 60K project that I thought would be incredible, but wound up being a great intro to freelancing education, I would say. And it's helped me help a lot of people who are getting into freelancing how to avoid similar traps with like scoping and stuff like that. So it paid off a lot, but it was a rough year. Cool. All right. So yeah, feel free to keep adding those questions. I'm going to take a look. Make sure people who aren't interested in freelancing still getting some good stuff out of this. Sammy, what can differentiate potential IDs in this insane job market? AI tools we've talked about. I think if you can do something creative that people aren't really doing something new or different with these e-learning tools, that seems to turn some heads and get some attention, as long as it's relevant to instructional design stuff. Like, for example, Daniel's AI-powered de-escalation experience is really cool. So I'd say if it were me and I was starting from scratch, I would definitely want to do some kind of AI advanced e-learning combo. That's what I would try to do to differentiate myself. Yeah, and I just want to reassure you too that you don't need to do something crazy, right? You don't need to create some groundbreaking project to get hired. Like, yes, the job market, you still will need to, it still might be months of applications. You still might need to apply to over 100 roles. That's what we're seeing on average. 100 roles or 100 applications is usually what it takes for someone to accept their job offer. So yeah, and then there are outliers, right? There are people who accept it after the first 20 or 30 and people who go up to 300. So yeah, it does take a lot of apps, but you don't need to do something crazy to get hired by any means. I hope that video that went live on Tuesday can be kind of reassuring. If you look at, we just launched our new showcase. We still have to add like more people, but peckacademy.com/showcase. These are all people that have landed roles this year and look at their portfolios, most of them follow this format that I'm sharing on YouTube. You don't need to do anything crazy to get hired. So I hope that helps. I know it can feel like that when you see how many people are applying to roles and stuff, but it's really just doing the essentials, right? Repositioning your past experience, branding yourself as an instructional designer, showing that you have these core skills on your portfolio site with one flagship project. That then if you apply, it's not so much like playing the lottery. It's still going to take some applications. You're still going to have to put in the work, but it's definitely possible and doable. And you don't need to do something crazy to differentiate yourself, in my opinion. A good question. I'm sure we could get into different ways to specialize and stuff, but if your goal is just to land a corporate role as soon as possible, I'd say, don't try to do something super crazy. Just do what already works. Yeah, so Maru's question, how hard is it to become a freelance ID? I don't think we talked about that piece. So I would say to get to the point where you have consistent work that replaces a full-time income, probably expected to take like a year after you have your skill set refined, your portfolio in place, and your LinkedIn online. You might get luckier sooner than that, but a really successful pipeline we've seen for people is, yeah, you optimize your LinkedIn. That's where a lot of potential clients hang out and search for instructional designers. So they find your LinkedIn profile, they go from your LinkedIn to your portfolio website. They see that, yes, this person has the skills I'm looking for. They can create the kind of project I need. And then they'll either send you a message on your contact form, a LinkedIn DM, or email you. So that was the pipeline I used when I got into the field. It's the pipeline I've helped people use throughout the programs I've had. And now it's what my team helps people do. And it's quite consistently successful. Let people know that you're freelancing. That's the number one thing I can say. Like, that's how YouTube wound up helping me in the beginning too, without me expecting it to as much as it did. Every video, I'm like, yeah, I'm Devlin Peck. I'm a freelance instructional designer, right? On LinkedIn, first thing, freelance instructional designer, contract eLearning developer. And then just try to help other people in the field, get yourself out there, engage with people on LinkedIn, attend different events like this and stuff. And as people identify you, they know you're a freelancer, it's not uncommon for orgs to need freelance instructional designer e-learning support. So there's a ton of work out there for skilled freelancers. So yeah, it's hard to get started up. It's hard to kind of, get your name out there enough to where consistent work is coming in. But if you're up for it, if you're interested in like content creation and that side of things, I mean, that is a nice long-term kind of superpower to fueling a freelance pipeline as well. Yeah. So again, happy to answer more freelance questions. Oh, now Christopher, too, full-time versus freelance versus side hustle. I think we've did a good job at addressing that one. Yeah, if you have the safety net, dive in and get freelance to go. If you want that extra flexibility, if you want the stability and the steady paycheck, more internal support, full-time is probably a good idea. And maybe side hustle is a good transition or a good way to supplement your income if you have a pretty chill full-time job where doesn't really require a full 40 hours a week and you want to supplement your income or experiment with some new skills or transition into freelancing full-time. That's where I think the side hustle would make a lot of sense. Vivian, ageism question. Is it real? How do we overcome it? I think it is real. I think from my experience, I have seen older people have a difficult time land roles in this field, a more difficult time. So it's real. I think a lot of the older people that I've worked with to talk about how this impacts them and how they land fewer interviews and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it is possible to overcome it with the same suggestions I'm giving other people. So I've worked with a lot of people. A big suggestion of mine initially, and then seeing kind of the consequences of it, has been like including a photo of yourself on your portfolio site to build a connection with people more easily. And yeah, that's one of the ones where the ageism can work against you. More people can see, oh, that you're older, or oh, you have some wrinkles or something. People in this field do have judgments around that. I mean, it's just people like anywhere else. Just like if your skin isn't white and you're in America, I've seen people have a much harder time landing roles when they were black. And yeah, it's very distressing, especially, one of my star students in the past had such a strong skill set, such standout skills, and they probably had a harder time landing a role than anyone I've worked with. So it's pretty saddening and frustrating. Especially, yeah, a lot of older people too I've worked with, their tech skills are super sharp, super on point, but they still have a harder time landing those interviews. So, so yeah, it's real. overcome it with perseverance. I always say it's a personal choice if you want to take that, if you want to take the photo down, if you want to, some people might view it as like hiding yourself almost, getting your foot in the door, waiting. But then most of the people I work with, they're like, no, if they are judging me because of this, I'd rather filter them out and it take a little bit longer. So I will say I haven't seen anyone not be able to land a role because of their age, but I will say it can take, a little bit longer, a few more applications, and it can be quite frustrating, obviously. Let me know if y'all have perspectives on that. I'm going to take a look at the chat, but yeah, I've worked with a lot of people getting into this field, and it's definitely frustrating seeing the isms and the phobias hurt people's chances at landing a role when they have all the skills. Yeah. Kelly's saying one of the most under radar and least talked about forms of discrimination. Yeah. All right. So yeah, valid concern. I think here a lot of people who are older transitioning careers feel this fear, feel this concerns. I just want to reassure you that, yeah, we have, worked with a lot of older people who do transition into the field. It's definitely not impossible. You will find an org and a team that appreciates your skill set. And yeah, hopefully all the content will help. But I just say focus on your skills, invest in that, right? You can't change, can't change your age, but you can change your skill set. And yeah, I would say it's definitely not a point where it's like, oh, if you're over 50, you're just completely barred from the industry. Like older instructional designers are definitely getting hired, older career transitioners. So yeah, y'all have got this. Sorry that it might be a little harder and you might deal with some unfair discrimination, but it's definitely possible to still succeed in this field. How hard is it to get a job? I think we already talked about that. That was our first question. All right. Kaitriona, let me know if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but you'd like to know if those looking to break into ID should build a professional niche and personal brand or try to demonstrate more broad knowledge and skills in different tools. So I would say my general recommendation, most of the people that I talk to, their goal is land a corporate ID role as soon as possible. That's the plan. So in those cases, I'd say, we have a pretty clear path to that, right? Like learn Storyline 360, build a project that solves a real world project, a real world problem, have decent visual design skills so it looks polished and professional and orgs can see e-learning like that being used at their, for their employees. That's a pretty straightforward path to getting hired. If you are coming into the field with a specific skill set or from a specific niche that you love, like someone who asked a question earlier, I'd say in those cases, it can make sense to lean all into that. Like if you have a really good like video development background and you want to make your whole portfolio about interactive videos for learning, I would just lean all into that, right? That would be so good for like a freelance business, right? If your niche is just creating some like really standout e-learning videos and making them interactive, go all in. You're gonna find success with that. You're gonna be able to charge a premium. Same thing if you're coming, from a specific niche, right? If you are, have a whole lifelong career working in hotels and you want to, and 100% you want to leverage that and work in an instructional design role in the hospitality industry. Like I mentioned earlier, make that woven throughout your entire portfolio website. It's obviously going to be harder to land roles maybe that aren't in the hospitality industry, but you're going to have such an unfair advantage when you are applying to those kind of roles over people who don't have that same background. So I think there are two ways to niche down. But again, if you're coming in, you don't, you're coming from public education, you don't have a ton of requirements over what industry you're working in. Maybe you're open to tech, maybe you're open to working in government, right? Maybe you're open to healthcare. I wouldn't be like, oh, I need to pick a niche and commit to it and go all in on that. That's not necessary, right? If you show off the core skills, you're going to be able to secure a role. So, and yeah, you don't need a broad, you don't need to show off a ton of different tools. It can help, right? If you do your Storyline 360 flagship project and then you're like, oh, I want to dive a bit deeper into video development, then you can make a supporting video with Camtasia. Yeah, you can make one of these AI powered custom GPTs. So, supporting projects can be a good way to show off a wider range of skills, but again, there's enough people out there hiring people with storyline skills that will land you a role at some point. There is a demand for people with that skill set. Talitha, what certificates would be best to acquire to stand out as an instructional designer? Our field is like there isn't like formal, yeah, our field isn't like teaching in that way where it's like an industry wide, every single person in the industry agrees, like, like a project manager, like the PMP or whatever. We don't have something like that in the instructional design field. So my perspective has always been that your portfolio will help you stand out more than anything, the solid skills that you have. Um, when we turned our bootcamp into our licensed career school, Peck Academy, we were able to offer a certification program, and we had like an independent body in the industry review our curriculum and give us a stamp of approval. And we can say now that, yes, people coming through this are certified professional instructional designers. But other orgs and stuff do the same thing as well. Like ATD is a popular one. I know when I was getting into the field, people would kind of like have discussions around their certificates. I mean, even LinkedIn Learning, I think for free, you can like complete courses and get certificates for it. So I don't know if there's one that's like industry wide recognized, but yeah. Maru, question about courses given by the ATD to land an ID role. I've never heard great things about them when I was getting into the industry. I think it's just like kind of like a knowledge dump from my understanding. Maybe they've updated them. Yeah, that brings me to think I know there was an ID who was like working on a course for them, and I know that ID is good, so maybe they did update it since I got into the field. But yeah, I don't think that they're anything groundbreaking from my understanding. I know it's a good org though. If you want to like network with people in person, they have chapters all over, and they do pretty good programming and stuff like that. So, and yeah, they've been like the go-to association for a long time in this field with a lot more history that I have in this field. So, yeah, I know they've got some good stuff going on. All right, we have people sharing some suggestions of where they did their certificate programs. Roger, LXD versus instructional designer, can you apply to both? Absolutely. The LXD thing is just like a more modern term for instructional design. Um, I used to get like fired up about that. I'm like, people are saying LXD is different than instructional design because some people were like, instructional designers are such peasants. They don't know how to do anything. And I was like, y'all don't get it. Good instructional design, said all the same stuff that you would do as an LXD like 40 years ago. Like the LXD stuff isn't new, but it's just like a way for people to try to separate themselves from like the traditional instructional designers that are doing like info dumps. So I get it. But you know, instructional designers also have a really should have a deep understanding of their audience and know how to design engaging experiences and all that good stuff. So you can definitely apply to both. There's no discernible difference as far as I'm concerned. Some people will die by a difference. That's okay. But yeah, definitely can apply to both. And I even use learning experience designer on my resume before and stuff too. I'm not like, don't use that term, avoid it or something. Like, the terms can be good. Just use whatever term the org you're applying to uses on your resume. Just swap it out as needed. Chamu, you need a sort of freelance ID community. You definitely should. It's definitely good having support. I was part of freelance ID communities when I got into the field, like Slack groups. Definitely good running stuff by other freelancers. And I would get frustrated too because I would see other freelancers get taken advantage of with scope creep is crazy. It's like we agree to a project and the client starts adding on more and more and more. Not every freelancer knows how to advocate for themselves and say, hey, this is out of scope. We need to rediscuss the price here and stuff like that. But it's a challenging and very rewarding journey going down the freelancing path. All right, we are at the top of the hour. We've covered a lot of different ground. I'm down to hang out a little bit longer, but how are y'all doing? I see y'all want to share LinkedIn profiles. So yeah, if y'all want to take a few minutes here and share and connect with each other on LinkedIn, I think that would be smart. We also have the free Devlin Peck community too at devlinpeck.com/ID if you want to ask any of these questions in there. I know a lot of y'all are probably already in there, but we'd love to see you. I'm looking at Marla's message. Marla has a marketing degree, lots of experience in sales, managing corporate accounts. All right, sounds like you got some really good soft skills. You already know the corporate world, and you love the possibilities available in instructional design. You want to jump right to freelance, create a strong brand, and build a team where you create a cohesive team of a couple IDs. I get the work and manage the projects under my brand. Is this feasible? That's definitely feasible, Marla. Once I started landing more and more work, I started outsourcing some stuff too. I was always super picky about the instructional design side, so it was easier for me to outsource development. I did custom illustrations, some video creation. So yeah, that is definitely possible as long as you're confident with like your pricing approach and creating a strong enough website and portfolio to demand a bit of a premium to still have some profit, after you're, paying out other IDs. But yeah, definitely possible. And then, yeah, that's very common at different instructional designers working together under multiple different arrangements on freelance projects. So definitely possible. Yeah. But some of the a lot of the contracts and projects out there want to work with like a contractor essentially. So that was something I had a challenge with when I was wanting to outsource stuff. Like they're looking for like one person that they can just plug into their team, and they know that that person is doing the work. So obviously if it's a 1099, you should have freedom over how that work gets done. It might just be expectations to set up front. But yeah, some teams might not be here for that. They want like each person working on it to sign an NDA. They want more control basically over exactly who is seeing and touching the project. So that might be the only tricky part, but definitely possible. What would I recommend for someone getting into the field from scratch without any prior experience in education? A lot of what I'm seeing seems to be from people with prior experience in education. I'm just finishing up with my bachelor's. Phil, that's how I got into the field. So it's pretty rare for people to get into this field straight out of undergrad, because most people don't find out about it until later. But I think that you can leverage something. What is your degree in? And also, have you considered a master's at all? I'm not gonna lie, I feel like because I had no real experience, like I did have a part-time remote ID job that like gave me the confidence to think like, oh, I'm gonna be able to land more since I landed this, but it really wasn't a great job. And my master's degree did help me, is what I was gonna say. Like since I was like, so young, and I really didn't have a actual experience to lean on for leverage. So I did try to kind of, you know, I leaned more into my master's program when I was first getting started. But my portfolio, I definitely wouldn't have been possible without my portfolio site. Um, my master's was in instructional systems and learning technologies. So they have like ID specific master's programs. Some programs are more focused on like K-12 education. So you want to find one that's a bit more focused on like the corporate world if that's your goal. Phil, your degrees in English education. That's what my major was for a little bit, but I changed it to English literature before I graduated. So I think you're going to be in good shape. Just learn the tech skills, right? Create a pretty modern looking portfolio website. Get a couple good projects in there. I'm sure you can find someone who will take a chance on you. If you want, you could try to look for like internships. You're at a good age for that. I don't know if there are a ton of ID internships. See if you can create e-learning projects for real clients, even if it's not paid. So if you have like a professor who does something on the side, or yeah, you want to create something for your classmates, if there are any nonprofits you're affiliated with, any family members who run businesses, if you can create an e-learning project that would actually make sense and help people in one of those roles, that's going to go very far on your portfolio site. Because that was something they asked me too when I was 22 or 23. They were like, okay, well, your portfolio is good, but for any of these for like actual clients, like were any of these used in the real world? And luckily, someone from my university, an alumni from my program, had taken a chance on me, and given me a simple project. Oh no, actually, that was an Upwork project. Was my first project, and then I was able to point to that to get hired at my second project. So, um, yeah, even if you could take something low paid, like a low paid freelance one or something, just to feature on your portfolio, that would be enough to get your foot in the door, I'd say. But having the e-learning specific skills are going to go further than having years of education experience. If you have years of education experience, there are definitely ways to leverage it, but I would never suggest like, oh, go and teach for a few years before trying to become an instructional designer. I would definitely not suggest that. But you are a bit more of a niche case, Phil, just like me when I was getting into this field, because most people, again, do have some kind of experience they can reframe or repurpose. Maybe you have had some jobs that you could kind of talk about. Like I worked for Apple when I was an undergrad, and I wound up creating some learning experiences for my team, just because I was like, my metrics were good, and they're like, okay, Devlin, put something together to like help, these other people. And then when I got into instructional design, I'm like, oh, I can frame that as instructional design experience. So maybe there are things you could do with, if you did like internships, things like that. I'm sure your resume could have some good stuff on it. I did my master's at Florida State University. It happened to be where I was doing undergrad, and I heard a speech there once when I was at like an award ceremony for the College of Education for like a scholarship that I got. And one of the alumni from the instructional design program there, they were working at Coca-Cola, and they like came to the award ceremony and like did a pitch for instructional design. I think that was my sophomore year, and I remember going on the website for it, and I was like, what is this exactly? Like, this is such a niche thing. I've never heard of this. And then I just went off the website for good, never thought about it again until my senior year, when I applied to a journalism job, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't have any more room on that team after my interview, but we do have room on our training team. Do you want to work on the training team? And that's when I was like, oh, this is like that instructional design master's program I looked at from that guy at Coca-Cola. And then I looked it up, and that's when I went down the rabbit hole and saw all the work-life balance, all the earning potential, all the remote opportunities. And I was like, maybe I can seriously consider this. This seems like it might be a good fit for me. And then the rest was history. um, and y'all feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. If we're not already connected, I'd love to connect with you all. Nice, Michelle. You went to FAU. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I grew up in Florida. I was very ready to get out, and I did not want to spend the 5 years in Tallahassee that I spent there for my undergrad and my master's. I appreciate it now, but definitely felt stuck there and suffocated with that tiny little airport and nothing within a close drive. All right, cool. How are we all doing? Anyone else have any questions? Are we feeling better about the transition? Are we feeling more overwhelmed? How are y'all feeling about becoming an instructional designer? All right, Lily, nice. You thought it was helpful. That's good. Juan, a little overwhelmed. That's understandable. Understandable. We do have the playlist on YouTube to help out, and yeah, feel free to join the community, ask questions. It's overwhelming at first, but what I always tell people and what I experience myself is like, what look in a month, check in with yourself, and think about how you feel about these different concepts and different skills that you're learning and stuff, and it's like night and day difference. So you'll be surprised how quickly you get comfortable with the language of the field, and you learn what next steps are required and stuff like that. Maisha, great. Thanks. We're happy to have you in there as well. Oh yeah, submit your portfolios for review. If y'all have any kind of portfolio, or if you want to see how we evaluate portfolios, please join us at the portfolio review session next week. I just shared the link to that. So that'll be a good one. That's kind of what we do every week. We do these like portfolio and deliverable review workshops. So we're going to do a free version of it for everyone else. And also that's when we're opening up applications for our next Peck Academy cohort too. So we're introducing tiers as well. So I know it's pretty expensive, but we're going to introduce lower cost tiers to still get all the job support you need, but not have to pay quite so much. So stay tuned for that. We'll start sending more details on the 18th, and we'd love to review your portfolio site if you have one. And you can sign up for free as well. And yeah, we do have a free community. You can go to devlinpeck.com/ID. It's a circle community. I have like this AI bot in there that's trained on every single one of my YouTube videos and can like reference specific timestamps from my YouTube videos. So if you haven't seen that yet, I spent a ton of time on it, and it's just been kind of doing its thing in there. So check that out. We have a little Devlin AI. So if you want to talk to the AI version of me, trained on all my YouTube knowledge, that's completely free in there as well. It's devlinpeck.com. I will say results may vary for some questions you ask, it'll answer it like better than I can with those very specific timestamps. And then for other ones, if you ask about like, some people ask questions about stuff that's in like our paid courses and it's not trained on that at all. Or if you ask it a question about something I've never once talked about on YouTube, it might like hallucinate, but check it out. I'd love to see you in there. And then Evan, there's a link on that registration form. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a form to submit your portfolio site. All right, very cool. Yeah, send me an email if y'all want any more personalized support. Me and my team can check it out. I'm going to be out of office next week. I'm going on a cruise to Alaska with my wife and her family. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be taking some pictures of some mountains and hopefully see some whales. That's probably the last cruise I ever do in my life, but I'm going to make the most of it while I go. So thank you, everyone. I'm glad. I appreciate you hanging out here with me for so long. Again, my team you'll be in good hands next week at this portfolio review workshop, and I'll talk to you all later. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.